Now that the left and democratic socialists are very clearly ascendant within the Democratic Party, one would think that leadership would at least try to adapt, even if it's for self-serving purposes, in order to stay relevant and maybe even pretend that they had any interest whatsoever in trying to placate us. But they can't even be bothered to do that. They're not even going to lie to us. They've made it abundantly clear that not a single thing is changing. And if we don't like that, we can go fuck ourselves. They'll happily hold hands with fascists and pledge fealty to a foreign country before they ever even give us the time of day. And I mean that literally.
We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. We stand with Israel.
That's your so-called leadership, Democrats. It doesn't matter how passionately you say that you want change. The Democratic Party establishment has made it abundantly clear that it's going to be business as usual, regardless if you want it that way or not. They'd rather go down with the ship and destroy their own party than even offer us a modicum of change. I say that because the ICE Gestapo murdered another person. This time it was in Biddeford, Maine, and ICE's latest victim was later identified as 26-year-old Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrera, a legal immigrant from Colombia who was murdered on his way to work. And all Chuck Schumer had the courage to muster up was a limp-dicked condemnation, along with a recommendation for more training for ICE brown shirts, because I guess abolishing a state-sanctioned terrorist organization would go too far. So giving them better training would somehow make them more effective at not killing people, I guess, if I'm following his logic. Makes total sense. But on the subject of killing people, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie put forward an amendment to cut off the billions of dollars in aid that we annually give to the genocidal state of Israel. And as Politico reports, Hakeem Jeffries, who took more than $1 million from the AIPAC lobby, announced his opposition to the amendment in open defiance of the base that he's supposed to represent. And as Donald Shaw of Sludge reports, Hakeem Jeffries made this decision after receiving AIPAC's largest ever earmarked contribution to his joint fundraising committee. So he took the money and said, fuck the base. And I don't think that that's hyperbolic because, as Adam Johnson pointed out in an article for The Intercept, 77% of Democrats think that Israel is committing a genocide, 74% oppose aid to Israel, 67% think that our relationship with Israel does more harm than good, and another 67% sympathize more with Palestinians than Israelis. Yet, the man who expects to be the leader of this party, the Speaker of the House, gave the entire base the middle finger. And as Usama Andrabi of Justice Democrats put it, this could have been a real opportunity for Jeffries to show that he's listening to the base as they elect a new class of Congress members skeptical of his leadership and that he's willing to buck powerful lobbies like AIPAC. But alas, it's the ultimate middle finger to the base who is demanding change at a moment when we desperately need change. But when given the choice between a foreign country committing a genocide or his own base, Hakeem Jeffries proudly, with his full chest, came out and said, my loyalty lies with the genocidal apartheid state of Israel, and that's not going to change anytime soon. If you don't like it, tough shit. So the people who are supposed to be leading the resistance against this fascist White House are collaborating with the fascists, even though they know the base wants the opposite. They just simply don't care. And they know, to be clear, just this week, Sarah Longwell of The Bulwark, who's no progressive, by the way, she released results from a Democratic focus group that she conducted that gave us more insight into the way that Democrats view the main lobbying arm of the genocidal state of Israel, which is AIPAC. And needless to say, voters do not approve of AIPAC and what they're doing.
AIPAC, which is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, it's gotten thrown around as a litmus test in many Democratic primaries, usually by more progressive challengers. Let's listen to some of the word associations we heard when you hear AIPAC.
Genocide. Extremists.
I'm thinking extortion.
There's a site on the internet called AIPAC Tracker, where you can find out how much money people have taken from AIPAC and other Israeli sources. And Haley Stevens has taken damn near the most money of anybody in the country. So she is right out for me.
I want to definitely make the point that I'm not saying that, if this candidate takes money from Jewish groups, I'm not voting. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying AIPAC specifically.
What you're hearing there is concern about U.S. policy towards Israel, but also that AIPAC has kind of become synonymous with dark money spending that distorts our politics and makes the U.S. government do things that are not in our best interests. And so again, like I'm with you in that I am uncomfortable with the level of emphasis you're hearing about AIPAC. I think they have gone from building ties between the U.S. and Israel to just trying to push like whatever Bibi Netanyahu wants as policy and demand that lawmakers follow suit. But when you hear words like extortion, I think that's wildly overstated. And I think it can play into anti-Semitic tropes.
Of course, because you're playing into anti-Semitic tropes if you acknowledge the immense power of a foreign lobbying group that literally just took down 2 progressive members of Congress in 2024 because they dared to oppose a genocide that this organization lobbied for. Hey, Tommy, I need you to listen very carefully to me when I say this. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. If you promote this idea that AIPAC and Israel are synonymous with Jewish people, you are the one who is being anti-Semitic, asshole, because you're feeding into this idea that opposing a foreign government and its lobbying operation is comparable to opposing Jewish people when that makes no fucking sense. Like, I don't think that Jewish Americans would appreciate the slander that you're lobbing at them. It'd be like if you said that it was homophobic to condemn George Santos after he was criticized for fraud, right? It would imply that being gay and being a fraud are inextricably linked, which is deeply offensive because George Santos isn't being criticized for being gay. He's being criticized for his actions, all right? And the same is true for Israel and AIPAC, yet these disingenuous hacks have tried to woke-wash a genocide to give cover to the genocide-supporting establishment Democrats that they dick ride. But we see through the game that's being played, and so do Democratic Party voters, apparently, as evidenced by the focus group that he was discussing. But ask yourselves this. Do you think that establishment Democrats are ignorant? Do you think they don't know about these kinds of polls and focus groups? They see the same things we're seeing. They're hyper-vigilant of them, to be clear. They know more than we know. But they are choosing, they're making the choice to defy their own fucking base to prop up a genocidal apartheid state because they either sincerely support genocide themselves and they're just doing it for the love of the game, or they feel like they have to support a genocide to remain in power. I mean, that's a distinction without a difference. Both are morally disgusting. So let me be crystal clear. If your position isn't fuck Israel, then it's fuck you too. Thankfully, Democratic voters actually have options now, and in more and more primaries, when presented with a non-genocide supporting option, we opt for the latter because it's obvious that that's the person you should support because genocide is bad. This is the easiest moral litmus test of all time, but yet so many politicians are failing it. But the good news is that in failing that easy moral litmus test, they're making it easy for us to parse out who the bullshitters are. They're showing us who they really are. For example, Gavin Newsom made it really easy to just write him off entirely in 2028 because he's denying basic reality when it comes to Israel.
Yes or no, do you consider Israel an apartheid state?
I said that was directional as it relates to what Freeman was arguing about the annexation of the West Bank. So no, but in the context of his pursuit in the hard and the far right, I align with that concern and that thinking that was expressed very pointedly by Tom Freeman.
Yeah. So you think they're potentially on the path to becoming an apartheid state if they continue?
My biggest concern, my red flag, is Bibi Netanyahu, period, full stop.
And just like that, he took himself out of the running to be president. Thank you, Gavin. It is a level of reality denial that is on par with Donald Trump. Because as Zachary Foster, a historian of Palestine, put it, every reputable international human rights group has described Israel as an apartheid state. But as he points out, the sad reality is that apartheid is the least of Palestinians' problems right now as they are being exterminated, ethnically cleansed, tortured, and starved by the millions. But Gavin Newsom inadvertently gave us the reason why he doesn't want to call Israel an apartheid state, because then that would imply that the issue actually goes deeper than Netanyahu. And genocide-supporting Democrats are hoping that their base is going to embrace Israel again one day after Netanyahu was out of the picture, and that entire strategy hinges on them denying reality. I mean, Tommy Vietor tried to scapegoat Netanyahu too when talking about AIPAC in that clip that we just watched with Sarah Longwell. And the problem is that if you call it an apartheid state, which it is, that would imply that the underlying problem with Israel is systemic. And if it's systemic, then it would logically follow that the ethno-supremacist regime itself needs to be dismantled. It's not as easy as just getting rid of Netanyahu. It's the entire system that's the problem. So These politicians are denying reality literally to preserve the inherently racist, Jim Crow-like nature of the state of Israel, where Jewish residents are entitled to full citizenship and Arabs and Palestinians are second-class citizens in perpetuity. It is antithetical to democracy when these same fucking people talk about how Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. But do you support democracy or do you not support democracy? Do you just support democracy here, or do you not hold that same standard for America's allies? But I mean, this is the position that the Israel lobby pays politicians like Gavin Newsom to have. And even if you remove Netanyahu from the picture, Israel is still going to be a settler colonial state that conditioned its citizens to think that they're superior to the indigenous inhabitants at the end of the day. That's not going to change if Netanyahu died tomorrow, okay? And the level of racism towards Palestinians is so overt that Israelis literally gather on hilltops with binoculars and snacks to watch their military slaughter innocent civilians in Gaza. And keep in mind, this article that I'm showing you is exactly 12 years old. So this has been happening long before October 7th. The response to Palestinian resistance, regardless if it's peaceful or not, has always been violence. Just 4 years after that, during the 2018 Great March of Return, around 30,000 Palestinians in Gaza peacefully protested Israel's violent military occupation. And just take a guess as to how IDF soldiers responded to that peaceful uprising. Just guess. By sniping Palestinians in the heads. In fact, they made a game out of sniping Palestinians. Because Palestinians are expected to live in a violent settler colony in perpetuity and never, ever resist it, even though they have the right to under international law. They have the right to resist this illegal occupation. And guess what? Things aren't suddenly going to change and get better when Netanyahu is out of the picture, because comparatively speaking, Netanyahu is actually somewhat moderate given how extreme most Israeli politicians are. And the reason why so many Israeli politicians are extreme is because they are a direct reflection of Israeli society. You could argue that politicians like Ben Gvir are more indicative of the broader sentiment in Israel than Netanyahu. And I just want to play a clip from Mehdi Hassan's interview with journalist Abby Martin, who documented Israeli extremism years ago.
In the space of 20 minutes, you captured how casual, how systemic, how widespread extremism is in Israel. This is well before the protests against the judicial reforms, well before October the 7th. This is nearly a decade ago. People are saying to you things like Islam is a very bad disease, Jews should have the right to hate them being Arabs, I would carpet bomb them being Palestinians. Today we hear about, it's the Netanyahu, it's Ben Gvir, it's Smotrich, as if you change the government and everything's fine. And I feel like you're someone who went there and saw very clearly things are not fine at a grassroots level.
Yeah. I mean, I saw the writing on the wall. This precipitated long before October 7th. This genocidal fervor was palpable. I did feel like I was being teleported to 1932 Berlin. I mean, it really did feel like Nazism in the most just... It was just crazy, Mehdi. I mean, you could take, I usually do man on the streets everywhere I go just to kind of get a snapshot on wherever I am. I have never experienced such virulent racism, hatred, and bigotry just openly knowing that you're on camera. Usually you like to hide those views away. Yes. This was just straight up on camera, like, we should kill Arabs. And I'm just like, what is wrong with you? Yeah. So at the time, I mean, I was really flabbergasted because I went in there thinking a two-state solution is possible. We were told our whole lives that Palestinians are the ones who hate Israelis and they can't live in peace. And really, it felt like reality was flipped on its head and everything that I had been told was a lie.
In a sense, watching those clips now, in a sense, they're even worse to watch now. Because now when you see Israelis do it, they'll hide behind October the 7th. The trauma of October 7th has made us this hateful. This was 2017. They didn't even have October 7th to hide behind.
This was a period of relative calm. They're standing in front of Sephora. I mean, just hanging out. This is all walks of life, secular, religious. I mean, it was really everyone. Yeah, and everyone said the same thing. In fact, one of the guys said, I'm a liberal. And I was like, well, what does that mean? He said, it's a slur in Israeli society. Don't call people a liberal. He said, I want the occupation to be more humane. Wow. And this is what you see. I mean, we think it's bad here in the States that the right, liberals are really right wing compared to the rest of the world. Oh, Lord. I mean, and you see this isn't just anecdotal. This is proven time and again in polls. So when people like Bernie Sanders like to paint this and wash away as Netanyahu's crimes, We know that this is widely felt.
Agreed.
This sentiment is widely felt and held throughout Israeli society, which really goes back to why boycott, divestment, sanctions is so necessary.
Now, I'm going to link you to her full report and highly encourage you to watch it because it is stunning. But this is why it's important to not let politicians off the hook, even the ones that we agree with, like Bernie Sanders, because any attempt to scapegoat Netanyahu specifically is intended to preserve the apartheid status quo in Israel, and it simply is not a position that we should tolerate. Even the best politicians on this issue are still not meeting the bar. They're still not where they should be, and we have to continue to push them. And on that note, Ro Khanna, who co-sponsored the amendment that we're talking about today in this video that Hakeem Jeffries opposes, he even won't commit to stopping the supply of so-called defensive weapons to Israel. And journalist Jeremy Scahill confronted him about this in a conversation that I think was really, really important.
What you're advocating for, we are talking about not just Netanyahu. Sanders always says Netanyahu and his extremist right-wing government. But if you look at public opinion polling, there is widespread support for open genocidal policies. In fact, Netanyahu is often criticized by his political opponents for not having finished the job in Gaza or in Lebanon or elsewhere. And I want to know why it is that you are stopping on this, because so much of what you're saying, it's one of the clearest recognitions of the issue that you could hear from an American politician. And yet you still are saying, but the sniper needs to have protection.
It's not the sniper. It's saying that we're not, just so there's no ambiguity on my position, which is also the position of Sanders or AOC or others, as I understand it. It is that we have zero military aid to Israel, that we have no military sales that are used to kill, military weapons that are used to be killing civilians. So that's the drop.
I would argue Iron Dome is used to kill. I would argue Iron Dome is used to kill civilians because it allows the Israelis to have this American backing to operate with impunity by openly saying that I support this military technology for Israel. What you're saying is that when Israel attacks other countries who have a right to fight back, that my position is that sniper, I wish he wasn't doing the sniping, but that sniper has a right to have the United States defending their sniping.
But I don't think that that's the case if we're stopping all military aid and we're stopping giving them the weapons to kill others, and we're stopping protecting them at the UN, and we're demanding the actions in terms of justice. I don't think that their policies, whether it's Netanyahu or another Israeli government.
Would you say this about apartheid South Africa? I've heard you talk
about it.
Give me another
think
example where you say it's okay to continue any level of support for an openly genocidal society that has mass murdered 80,000 people, more than 300 media workers, has invaded Lebanon, has bombed Iran, and you're saying, oh, but we need to protect civilians. This isn't about protecting civilians. The greatest threat to their civilians is their policy. And so I don't understand why you have even one qualified shred of support for a sniper mass murderer masquerading as the only democracy in the Middle East.
Well, but I'm not saying that the United States should be supporting the funding for Iron Dome, just so we're clear. I'm saying that we shouldn't be restricting Israel from being able to get the Iron Dome or be able to develop the Iron Dome technology. Well,
I stop there. Everything else you're saying makes so much sense. Why do you stop there? It feels to me like you're trying to have it both ways on this issue. So you can say, well, I actually support, defending the Israeli civilians. You're not defending Israeli civilians with that policy. You're defending the sniper's ability to keep killing because it won't face the ultimate accountability, which is a total embargo on all support for an apartheid state.
And Jeremy goes on to challenge him on the double standard that he clearly has, where he can easily condemn Hamas for their violence, but won't hold Israel to the same standard, even though they're the ones illegally occupying Palestine in the first place. And what Jeremy is doing here, it's important, okay? He's not being nitpicky. He's not purity testing. What he's doing is crucial because we need politicians to be unequivocal about this and reject the entire settler colonial project of Israel and advocate for actual democracy with equal rights for all, and not a fucking ethno-supremacist state with an institutionalized racial hierarchy, okay? Until we shift that paradigm and view Zionism as an ideology tantamount to fascism and racism, even the policies of the most prominent progressive politicians in America are going to do little more than offer short-term reprieve for Palestinians. Don't get me wrong, a weapons embargo on Israel would be a great start to end the bloodshed, but the long-term goal is a free Palestine. But of course, the bar is in hell, and we can't even get Democratic leadership to agree to the bare minimum, which is an end to military aid to Israel just in general. We still have to give them billions of dollars every single year because that's what the politicians demand of us. Hakeem Jeffries is joining Christian Zionist fascists like Mike Johnson to continue the flow of our money to Israel uninterrupted, presumably forever. And if he's still not budging from that position that AIPAC bought from him, to be clear, then he's obviously never going to change, which means that the man is incapable of being the leader of this Democratic Party in 2026. And not just in 2026, not ever. If Democrats take back the House, this man cannot be the leader of the Democratic Party. He is not qualified to be Speaker of a party that opposes everything this man stands for. So elected Democrats better come up with a plan to oust Schumer and Jeffries, because having genocide supporters as the leaders of your party is a reflection of the entire party. And if you actually believe that we need to defeat fascism, then you cannot tolerate these two motherfuckers who are corrupt genocide supporters as the faces of the party. You have to oppose them with everything that you've got.